but it's actually geographically pretty small. So I found this graphic that shows the area of UK against the Indian map. It shows you just how small it is. So lots of people think of UK as a big place to go, a really important place to go, but it is actually quite small, and our higher education system is also quite small. Thank you. The next thing I want to say, and I'm sure you may have learned this in geography, but it's actually very important that you know this if you are thinking of studying in UK later, that we actually have 4 countries within UK: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. We are in one country, but actually each country has slightly different higher education rules and system. Especially Scotland and England are quite different. So Scotland, in senior secondary school, they do a different qualification to what we do in England. There are excellent universities in all 4 countries in England, but if you yourself are thinking of applying to UK university for PG, you just need to be careful which country is the university in and check the specifics. Because often we see the information for England, but actually England is only one of these parts. So you have to check, if you're thinking of Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland, check the guidelines for that country. Okay. So now I want to just compare for you the size of higher education system between India and UK. So I found the most recent data I could find. We only have 285 higher education institutions, so that's universities, in the UK. In India, you have 1,113 universities and 43,000 more colleges. So you see, we don't have many colleges, mostly university education. So you see the difference. The Indian higher education system is massive compared to the UK. And this is important that you know for thinking about PG study, because in UK, because it's quite small, it's very competitive. So that's what you need to realize, that in India, you have a huge number of institutions and many fewer in UK. The second thing you need to know is the number of students. So in the UK, across all higher education in UK, we have 2.2 million students, which I think is 22 lakhs, if I've understood correctly. So that's what we have in the country. In India, there are 41 million students, which I think is 4.14, in the country, studying in higher education. So the difference in the size of these numbers is massive. So again, we're talking about quite a small country, quite a small higher education sector. Even though its reputation is large, the reputation is partly large because of the British colonial empire, which has its advantages and disadvantages.
Many disadvantages.
At this point, we recognize the disadvantage. So because of the colonial empire, UK has this huge reputation, but actually it's quite small. So we have to remember that. Thank you. I want you to visualize the comparison now between the sectors. So this is just universities, not colleges. This is the UK, this is India. So this blue column is the comparison, number of universities in India and universities in UK. And even more astonishing, this is the number of students in India, and in UK it's just down here, across all levels. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the comparison. Thank you. So the next thing I want to explain about UK higher education is that we know in India there's a lot of private colleges coming up and universities. So for all these students, you see, the state system currently isn't big enough. There are so many private institutions that are now springing up. In the system is almost completely state. However, they are quite similar to private universities because they are state universities, but they use a business model. So there's a lot of market principles. If any of you are in commerce, you'll understand the competitive business model. So there's a lot of competition that's happening between UK universities, but they are basically state institutions. We only have 11 private universities in the UK, and they're very small, like 5,000 students each, and they tend to focus on business and law. Now, if you are yourselves thinking about higher education in UK for PG, I'm not going to say don't go to private, but what I will say is that lots of Indian students are sold these institutions and they have a very high fee. So you need to be careful that actually the state universities have still a big fee, but a lower fee, and the state universities have a more guaranteed quality of education. So if you're looking at universities in UK, just try to be careful, check, is this a private or is this a state university? Thank you. So the next thing you need to know is that UK universities are classified in different ways. So they have different groups that they're part of. This is the three biggest groups, but there are other groups as well. And you will start, if you're looking at UK universities, you will start hearing these terms, especially Russell Group. Russell Group is the group of in a way, the elite universities or the universities that are doing lots of research, doing lots of international activities. So Warwick is in Russell Group, University of Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, LSE, any of these universities, often you will have heard of, are in the Russell Group. These are really excellent universities, also very competitive, and we have to recognise that there are other universities in UK, like in University Alliance and Million Plus Group. Often these are newer universities, but they are often very good at teaching. So in the Russell Group, we often have a competition in our priorities between research and teaching. So today I'm standing here as part of my research. That means I'm not at home teaching. In these other groups, often it's more, there's a full focus on teaching. So it doesn't mean, just because it's not the Russell Group, it doesn't mean it's a bad university. Actually, it means the student experience is often really good. So it doesn't, you should consider the university you're interested in, based on the course and based on the priorities of that institution. But you will see these terms around, so to explain to you a little, that's what they mean. So, yes, I'm doing that.
No.
Okay. So there are some key considerations if you are thinking about PG study in the UK. The first one is that there are very traditional master's programs, things like you would already know of here. At the same time, we also in the UK have lots of innovative and interdisciplinary courses. So things where maybe you've done your degree or your graduation in one subject, you can actually do pathway switching. So maybe you did your undergraduate in English, but you can often go and do a social sciences master's after. And we have lots of these interesting master's programs because we have more freedom. I think in India it's now coming, but we have more freedom in the UK to propose sort of interesting new courses. So the master's course that I developed, Global Education and International Development, is a course like that. It's full of different disciplines, bit of economics, bit of politics, bit of sociology, bit of education. It all comes together, international development. So we have these kinds of options. So lots of international students choose UK because there are these very different kinds of courses there. An important thing you need to know is that master's courses are usually 1 year in the UK. And sometimes that can pose questions or issues because sometimes Indian employers require 2 years masters. But we know from Anne's experience that actually, as long as employers in India understand this is a UK Masters, they understand it should be 1 year. So all of our Masters mostly are 1 year. So that's just what you should know. Something you need to know as well is that English language test is necessary for entry to UK university, so normally IELTS. Now, I want to give a formal apology on behalf of Britain, because Britain colonized, brought English to India, and now if Indian students want to come to UK, they still have to do an English test, which is crazy. So, sorry about that, but it's true. So you have IELTS, often is like, it's kind of one of those things you just have to learn, you have to do it, and you have to get a certain mark to get entrance. Something else that you need to know, and I want to set here realistic considerations for your future thinking, that the fees are very high for master's level study in UK. They are around 24 lakhs in rupees. So that's pretty high fees. There are some scholarship opportunities, but not that many. Okay? So you have to set this realistic expectation that that is what it costs. Thank you. However, there are scholarship schemes for ambitious, worthy and individuals. So I've given some links here: British Council website, UK government scholarships website, and also in individual universities like Warwick, they have some master's scholarships available. So if you're interested in a particular university, you can check that university site. So in case you're thinking, I wanted to go to UK for masters, but I don't have that kind of money, there are some other, different pathways you can take through. So when you finish your degree at SLC, there are some different pathways you can consider. So the first thing you can consider is PG in UK, or possibly in another country. So there are other countries that have lower fees and have more scholarships. You can also do PG in India, or we have quite a few students now who do PG in India, work for some years, and do second PG in UK. So maybe they will have 2 masters. Okay, so we do see this quite a lot. People work 5 years, 3 years, save up the money and come and do second PG. Another option is to do PhD in UK. There are quite a lot of scholarships for PhD, not that many, but there are more maybe scholarships for PhD than masters. So don't give up hope. You can also go UK masters, UK PhD, you can go PG in India, PhD in UK, you can do 2 PG and PhD in UK. So there are different ways, if you want to study in UK, to think about your future planning. So it's important to start now, early on in your studies, and think about if this is something you're interested in, then do your research, be realistic, and think about, okay, if this isn't possible, it might be possible later. And maybe finish. Yeah. So this is my introduction to you for UK study at PG level. And thank you for your attention. And I will now hand over to my colleague Anne, who will give you some specifics about how to look for PG opportunities. I hope this was useful for you, and I will look forward to your questions after Anne has finished. Thank you so much.
But have you got any questions now? Anything you would like to ask us? Any queries? Any thoughts? Anything you'd like to say?
When did you get this?
told you about the general context. Have you got any questions? You were talking to each other. Any thoughts? Anything you've thought about? Yes, go for it.
What is the point of doing second postgraduate from UK?
What's the point? Yes. It would depend. I mean, one is you might want to change your specialism a little bit. You might decide that you've done one master's and you now want to specialise in something a little bit more, and you do it through another master's. It might be that you think it has an advantage of having qualifications from 2 different countries. For you want an international career, it might be the case that 2 are useful for you. So you might be learning different skills with one master's than you are with another. So it's important to just think whether that's sensible or not with what you want to do next with your life, really. What sort of career you want to develop. Any other queries? So, as Emily said, what you need to think about is where you want to study. Scotland is cold, colder than England. Also, you might also want to think about the place that you would want to study. So, for instance, if you come from an urban area, if you've been born and brought up here in Delhi, and you've got used to a big city life, and you like living in a big city, you might think you would prefer to study in London because it would seem familiar to you. Or there might be other bigs, they're not very big by Indian standards, but big by UK standards, somewhere else in the country. So any of you that follow football will probably know Manchester United or Manchester City, 2 great teams. They have a good university in Manchester. It's a big city, and you might think, I want to study in another city. My own team, which is Sheffield United, just been promoted to the Premier League. Sheffield also is quite a big city. So you might think about city. Now, our university is a campus university, which means that unlike often studying in a big city like Manchester or London, you might not have accommodation provided for you on the campus. You might have to find your own. You might be able to get into an international hostel, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. And you might like the fact that you have the freedom to go backwards and forwards to your university and live somewhere else. Other universities in the UK are campus-based. In other words, we are based, our university, just outside big cities by our standards in the Midlands. So many students live in residences around the campus. Some students live locally and come in by bus or walk, but it's a different experience. So the idea is that if you're on a campus, you live your life on the campus more. So it's more of an environment whereby lots of sports facilities are there, lots of swimming pools are there, the libraries are there, the entertainment for students is there. And it's all in one place, and it creates a sense of community. Now, some people feel that gives greater security. You feel you know where you are. You're part of a bigger community. Other people, as I say, prefer the experience of cities. So that's another consideration you need to give. What sort of university is it? Is it a campus university or is it a city university? And that will give you a different experience to the way you are. So we are, as you can see from our website, we are in fact just outside, we're about 100 miles from London, which is quite a long way in British terms, but nothing in Indian terms. So if you go to any university website in the UK, you will see something similar to this. This is the front page of the University of Warwick's study. So you can see across here, obviously, you're all very good at computers now, far better than me, I'm sure. But you know, if you would then go, well, postgraduate. So if you're looking for postgraduate study, you would click on that. And then you would see what will come down here is all the courses that Warwick University offers at postgraduate level. And then when you go to that page, you could type in. So anybody got an idea of what course they might, just guess, what sort of course might you want to do at postgraduate level? Any ideas? Any masters you might like to do in any subject? Sorry, data science. Would I put in data science? I'll go, Emily's my trusted assistant over here at the moment. So data science. There's data analytics. So search, yeah. So there we are. We have behavioural and data science. And then you'd be able to go down there and have a look at it and what the content of that master's would be. Other universities will offer data science as well. So you would say, all right, let me have a look. As Emily says, you might think, well, I might want to go to a university which is very good at teaching and puts a lot of energy into teaching, so I'll look at one of those universities. You might say, I want to go to a Russell Group university, and I'll look there. So you get to know which ones it is. So you can find out more about that. Can we go back, sorry, to postgraduate trusted assistant over there on my left. So you get the name of the courses, and then you can think about how to apply. So here we've got applying, taught course applications. Everything is done online, as you will imagine these days. So the application is all online, and you would be talked through on the application system. You always have to pay a fee to apply. So think carefully about that. Don't apply, oh, I'll apply to 20 universities, because you're going to have to pay a fee to apply. So think carefully about that before, look and assess. So you can think about how to do a taught course application online. Each university has fees and funding page, so you can find out how much your course is going to cost. And they're not the same cost. Science master's courses might be more expensive than humanities master's courses, for instance. The business school, the fees are very, very high at our university. And so, you might think about, be aware of the fact that there are different levels of fee, but you can find that out. You can find fees and expenses, and you might just go to fees and expenses. Yeah, great. Okay. So you will find on this page, if we go down, I think you will find out what the taught fees are. So for your course, you can click on and it'll tell you, any university will have similar pages, and it will tell you all the information. And of course, what you've got to realise is that fees are only one element. You've got to live. So you have to think about your maintenance as well. How you're going to live, accommodation, how you're going to, provide yourself with food and entertainment even, dare I ask. So you have to think about those things as well. But the university websites guides students through the system. We have frequently open days, and these are often online. Some of them are in person, but there will be virtual open days for many universities that you can, as Emily says, the British Council often alerts on our behalf as universities when open days are, and so on. So you can do a virtual open week, it seems. Good Lord, we're a whole week, I didn't know that. So you can do Meet Your Department, which you can get frequently answered questions, and also hear more information about how to apply. And because Warwick is very, like many universities in the UK, we want Indian students in our university. We think you're very good students. So in my department, I'm always delighted when I get applications for Indian students. So we have an office. Our university has a specialist team in our central administration that looks after the interests of international students. We have a designated person that works for the South Asia region, and he and his team come to India quite regularly, and there are agents used by the university who can assist students who might be interested in applying to our university. Other universities in the UK will have the same system. They will have the same, not all, but many will have a dedicated person in their administration that knows about Indian qualifications and so on and so forth. So basically what I'm saying is you work your way through this list here, and you might say, why Warwick? And of course every university is trying to show how clever it is and how wonderful it is, but you know, it's useful to think about here, campus life. As I say, are a campus university. In London University, they will have a different section on that. So you can look through and start to get a sense of what it's like to apply to a particular university in the UK. So that's, and this won't load up because it's quite heavy, but we do a, you know, you walk your way around the campus by a 360 virtual tour, which you can sort of look through and see what it's like. And I'm sure other universities will have the same. So, anything else specifically that you would like to know? Or have we exhausted you with all that information? What do you think? Any questions, anything you like? It'd be nice to hear from you. We like listening to students, don't we? Yeah.
अगर आप हिंदी
she can speak
अगर
Hindi.
आप सवाल हिंदी में पूछना चाहते हैं तो कोई बात नहीं, मैं जवाब देने की कोशिश कर सकती हूँ.
Impressive. Any questions? Any thoughts? Or do you want to go for your lunch? Anything? Anybody wants to ask? Yes, go for it. Yes, that's a good question.
So the question was, what would be the future prospects after PG?
As we all know, we live in a very political world, don't we? And so countries require visas, and they restrict the amount of time often that students can work after their time in a particular country. And you might look across countries. United States, Canada. Canada tends to be a little bit more generous about its time for students that can stay on than often the UK. At the moment, and I must stress this because we are not visa experts, but as I understand it at the moment, our government says that if you finish your study, you can stay for 2 years afterwards and work in the UK if you can find a job. So you could possibly, in answer to your question, you might think, well, I've done my master's, I'd like now to get some experience working in the UK, pay back some of the fees that you've had to borrow money for, and now you can do that for up to 2 years. If after that you think, oh, I'd like to stay a bit longer, and you find an employer, the employer can then apply to sponsor you, but it's not guaranteed. So you can stay on after. So one is you can gain some experience, international experience, and I can just use the example of my department, the law department, where we have many international students at postgraduate level. Our students meet each other from all over the world. So in my classroom at postgraduate level, I will have students from 15 different countries. And you get to know and network across those, you know, people make friendships, they learn about the international world, they see the way you might be able to think about working somewhere else. And that's, you know, the opportunities there are, you can think about where you might want to go on to work. So in my department, some students choose to go back home and qualify and practice as lawyers. Some choose to get or obtain jobs in international organisations at the UN, because it asks as a law department, they can go on to do that. Some will choose to go into commerce as business advisors and lawyers. So there's a very high opportunity. All our graduates go out with jobs at postgraduate level. So they choose what the next stage is. And the universities in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same here, but we give a lot of careers advice. So whilst you're doing your postgraduate course, you can go along to the specialist careers advisor who help you develop your CV, who advise you on how to do applications, and they bring onto our campus a lot of employers who then you can see, and you know, the business school, they have businesses there. In our department, because I'm law again, the big city firms come and then the students can interact with them and so on. So the job opportunities are there for you. Sorry. Yeah, so, yeah. So, any more?
One more question.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
As you said, as you told about the thing that after completing our studies, we're gonna work there. But when we will leave there after IELTS, we will get the study visa, I guess. And for working there, we need a work permit. And if I'm gonna stay after 2 years, we will have to renew that visa. And the IELTS will also be, you know, renewed for the working permit and all.
I can't give. I'm not a visa advisor, but if you've studied in the UK,
Yes.
you won't be asked for another IELTS test for employment.
Well, if for working and for studying, there are both different IELTS courses as well as visa permits. So, does the college guides there and helps there? As you said, you're gonna make us work there. Then these things also come into play. If I'm gonna work, then we will have to get the permit as well.
You, after the 2 years that you have as a result of being a student visa, if you want to move on to an employment visa, you will have to apply again. And yes, indeed. This is, you know, this, as I say, we're in a very geopolitical world. Those of you that are studying political science will be well aware of these things. So yes, but as it stands at the moment, students can stay for a couple of years afterwards.
And normally, if you get a job,
Yeah.
the employer has a process of advising and helping with the next visa process.
The employer will sort that out for you if you get
If
a job.
they want you, they will help you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.